We are coming to you live from the tallest building in South Africa. You can see this shot of Stanton. We're in the richest square mile. The sun is going down, but the lights are not coming on, and that's because we're currently being load shed. Luckily, some generators here at the Leonardo Hotel, so we can continue this discussion looking at the power crisis from all angles. Now, that was Eskom's take, but some have said, look, the Eskom execs, it should be lights out for them. They are to blame for what is going on. Politicians fumbling in the dark while our economy burns. Let's get some analysis now. We're joined firstly by Trevor Ngwane from the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee, Dr Ngwane, and also Alan Mukoki from the South African Chamber of Commerce. He is CEO. Thank you both for being with me. Doctor, you've accused Eskom of energy apartheid, of a whole lot of things. Does it make any difference if you hear the CEO saying the red tape is so bad that we've basically ground to a standstill? We're trying to do something, but it's been very, very difficult.
Yeah, well, but Mr. Andre Tiriter has been holding this position for a few years. So I'm surprised that he's realizing only today that the red tape is so bad. So I've got this feeling that, it's a case of the pot calling the kettle black, so to speak, because everyone is kicking the can down the road. I mean, even the ministers, the Minister of Public Enterprises blames the Minister of Minerals and Energy. I think our leadership is not being accountable. They are not taking responsibility for their failure to address the energy crisis.
Do you agree, Mr. Mukoki? And an economist has recently said that what has happened is bringing our economic recovery after COVID-19 basically to a standstill.
Well, there's no doubt about that, Francis. It's a very major issue. It's a setback. I mean, we survived COVID. We thought that we're now looking forward to an economic recovery of one sort or the other. There's reconstruction recovery, and then you have an energy crisis that is very devastating. So most businesses are struggling. You can't plan ahead because there is this lack of consistency about what can happen. And I think that the thing that is more scary is not so much that you've got load shedding, is that it doesn't seem as though someone knows what's going on. It's almost like there is this level of uncertainty that has scaled up significantly, because none of the plans, none of the promises that get to be made are ever fulfilled. And that is much more scary, because it says that the people who are in charge, whether it's the ministers, whether it's the presidency, whether it's their board, it looks like they themselves may have lost control of the situation. And that is much more scary.
It is scary, and you said it's kicking the can down the road or kicking the can to each other. And some people have noticed there does seem to be this blame game within government, just putting Eskom aside for now. The Minister of Minerals is the only person who can commission new energy. We were talking there about the fact that since 2018, only 150 megawatts have basically gone past the line, and that's out of thousands, 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts needed just to prevent load shedding. So he's the one responsible for that, but he says, look, I'm not in charge of Eskom. And then the Minister of Public Enterprises saying, look, I can't generate new energy. So does it feel like that, a complete blame game?
Well, yeah, I think that one of the things we need to learn as South Africans is to be able to investigate and diagnose the root cause of a problem before we solve it. I think that sometimes we're in a hurry to do a band-aid. Let's fix it now. We think that there's a problem, but we don't actually step back and say, okay, let's understand exactly what the nature of the problem is. I was listening to one energy expert on one of the shows just the other day, and he was saying the issue has got nothing to do with generation of new power. The issue is there are 15 gigs of power stations, of infrastructure that is not actually coming through the line. And therefore you have a very serious maintenance issue as it relates to that. Now, do we know the root cause of why we're not maintaining the infrastructure, why we're not maintaining the power plants? And if we do maintain them, they keep breaking down all the time. We need to get to the bottom of what is going on. Are we using the right service level people to be able to resolve that issue? Do we have the right jockeys on this particular horse when it relates specifically to that particular issue of why do you have 15 gigawatts of power not being online?
So is Eskom to blame for that?
it is Eskom to blame for that, and every other person that believes themselves they are responsible for Eskom. So Eskom has a board. The board is responsible. The executives are responsible. The minister is responsible if he is the minister who looks after that particular board as an executive authority. So everybody else has got to take a responsibility for what has happened. But sometimes you may get to a position where the people that are supposed to take responsibility are themselves not aware what the real actual problem is. And that is the part that we're raising now to say, let's all step back. Perhaps maybe we need to find a different solution to this. It's been a long time. You know, we can have it now. It was there last year. You know, it's been many, many, many years. There isn't a very clear plan that is on the table that says in the next 2 years or 18 months, load shedding is going to be a thing of the past.
So we need something clear. Doctor, Soweto residents are the ones who are suffering. We hear of people with lights out for 2 weeks, sometimes longer. What sort of engagements have you had with officials? What are you hearing about the diagnosis of the problem and what can be done? And of course, there's a whole debt issue on the side as well.
Yeah, well, you know, we conducted some research as the University of Johannesburg Center for Sociological Research and Practice, and then we crystallized our findings, you know, you were saying just now, in the concept of energy racism. So basically, because of the coincidence of race and class in South Africa, you find that poor black working class people are bearing the brunt of the energy crisis. So the rich guys, you know, I nearly gestured towards you.
I'm not rich.
The rich guys, you know, rich, yeah. They've got enough money and power.
He did have a very good advantage because he only had to come from Sandton to Sandton. You had to come from Soweto through all these roadblocks or through all this congestion to Sandton.
Exactly. So the rich people, you know, they've got more leeway, in the sense that they've got the power, the influence, and the backup when they don't have, you know, energy from Eskom. Whereas a poor grain in Soweto, if there are no lights, there is no generator, there is no solar, she can't go and eat out, you know, or take a takeaway. So, you know, poor working class people are really, really bearing the brunt. The worst part is that because they are more or less powerless, you know, Eskom bosses take advantage of that, and then they do what is called load reduction, where they do more power failure, you know, load shedding in poor black working class areas. It's not just
Although
Soweto.
They have said that's because of an overload, because of the sabotage, because of so many illegal cables.
Yes, of course, but that's just racial profiling, because you won't find that in Sandton. Of course, you're going to find it in Kukuletu, in Tanzania, in Soshanguve. Unemployment, overcrowding, apartheid geography continues. You know, in other words, even the infrastructure, it's better in Sandton than in Soweto or in Lamontville. So in a way, you know, poor black working class people are getting, you know, the brunt of this crisis.
And I guess it doesn't help. Look, there's municipalities involved as well, but it doesn't help when you hear that some people are not being load shed in certain areas, maybe because other important people are living there. That's been in the news of late, and I'm sure that adds to the resentment. Mr. Mukoki, we're running out of time. Just tell us, what is the real economic impact here? What are your members saying? Of course, there are some agreements where the big smelters won't be subject to rolling blackouts like the rest of us. There's a deal with Eskom. Does that alleviate the problem in some senses? How bad is it, I guess?
It's a big problem because, as you can understand, look at infrastructure only. For instance, the minister the other day was announcing electric trains that are going to actually be launched in South Africa. But those electric trains, they need power for them to run, okay? If you are going to have load shedding and you've got logistics and a logistics infrastructure that relies on electricity, you need to move goods by train to go to the port. and there is electricity problems there, you are not actually going to fulfill your own obligations to your own customers overseas. So it dents the image of the country in that we look like people who don't actually know what it is that we're doing. There are people, of course, as you know, when you manufacture things and you're exporting, you're going to be put into clauses in your contracts of performance guarantees. In other words, as a supplier, you need to accept a performance guarantee that says you will perform, and if you fail to perform, you have penalties, and you are damaging the reputation of your organization because you are not able to fulfill your own obligations in terms of that particular contract, and that equals lost jobs, lost revenues. It's the government itself that suffers because the 3 lines of tax, corporate income tax, personal income tax, indirect taxes, disappear.
In 10 seconds, 1.7% growth, could we even get there this year? And that was dismal to start with.
I think that would be very tough this year.
Sure.
Not with the energy crisis and all the other things that are happening. That's going to be hugely tough. I don't see that happening.
All right, thank you very much. That was Dr. Trevor Ngwane from the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee, Alan Mukoki, CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce, just looking at the economic impact. We'll continue to look at the power crisis from all different angles, talking about renewable energy when we're back next from the highest building in Sandton in Johannesburg.